Anyone who decides to join the armed forces and serve our country has my admiration and respect. It doesn't matter how long you've served. You could have done your initial 3 years and gone back to Civvy Street, or maybe you've done just 4, 8, 12, get your half pension, or maybe your full 22 and beyond. It really doesn't matter. At least you've had the bollocks to sign up, put your life on the line, join a great institution establishment, and perhaps do something with your life. Not many people have got the bollocks to do that. And yes, it takes a huge amount of courage to walk into that recruitment office and say you want to join the army. It really does. So I don't really judge you on how long you've spent in the army, navy, air force. But there are those out there who do. And they're usually the types who found life just a bit hard in an infantry regiment and then buggered off and transferred to, say, I don't know, the military police, where they get a cushier life and a free stripe, a free rank for doing fuck all. These are the judgmental types. But the army has gone leaps forward with inclusivity, multiculturalism, diversity, and the rest of this progressive woke nonsense. While the real threats to the world, the armed forces of North Korea, China, Russia, Iran, they're all concentrating on recruiting the right people for the job. These nations want killing machines to defend their nations, and I'm quite certain if you turned up at their recruiting offices and told them what your preferred pronouns are, they'd tell you to fuck off. And rightly so, I think. And I am filled with embarrassment when I hear the British Army and even the American Army, the mighty United States Armed Forces, and we are dedicating days and weeks on courses about how to address people with their preferred pronouns. This is real. This isn't a joke, and it's quite sad. And from what I hear from former friends and colleagues in the armed forces who have since retired recently, the British Army, of which I knew, of which some of you knew, it's gone. And yesterday I heard a bit of news, and it became news on the mainstream media, and that is the British Army will now allow men and women, or whatever you identify as, and you have HIV, then you are allowed to serve. Now, there is a lot of stigma about sufferers of HIV and AIDS. It isn't a disease, a truly awful disease that just affects gay people. And yes, there are idiots out there who still believe this. And sufferers of HIV and AIDS can live a full life now, thanks to advancement in science and medication. And from what I read online, I believe they're close to eradicating it as well. But in my view, and like I said earlier, I have complete admiration and respect for anyone who wants to serve this country. But it's the defence of this country, our democracy, our freedoms, and our territories that should be paramount. And by bending over backwards to appease woke ideals and rhetoric, I think is wrong, and it weakens our armed forces. Now, it is a myth, a complete myth, that you can catch HIV through touching, shaking hands, hugging, etc. And you can't catch it off a toilet seat. Again, there are so many misconceptions and disinformation. I hate using the word disinformation because that's for the lefties to use when they hear things they don't like. But thanks to advancement in medicine and science, again, as I mentioned earlier, HIV is quite hard to catch now. And I really do admire the fact that people with HIV, etc., want to serve our country. But imagine yourself in the front line. And imagine you're on a battlefield, either at home or some far-flung foreign field. Try saying that when you're drunk. And then you're in a firefight and your mucker gets hit next to you. Because having experienced that situation myself, it happens and blood goes everywhere. My own vehicle, when I was in Iraq in 2004, we drove past an IED. It was dug into the ground and it was remotely detonated. As soon as my vehicle was on top of it, it detonated. Now, me and my mucker, we were top cover. I received a bit of shrapnel in my thigh and I lost a bit of my hearing. My mate next to me, however, who was close to the IED, he lost most of his hearing and he had shrapnel which went into his head and through his neck. And his blood landed on my face, and there was quite a bit. Now, had I had any open wounds on my face, had that got into my mouth, then there would have been a high chance I would have caught HIV. Now, that's just one example, but when you're in a battlefield, limbs come off. There is blood everywhere, organs come out. And say you finish treating one guy, and you've run out of first field dressings, what do you do to close that wound? You put your hand in it. It's little things like this that I think of, that soldiers serving will think of. And it'll probably lead to, unfortunately, discrimination. Because out there on the battlefield, you're trying to dodge the enemy, their bullets, and also your mate, because you don't want to be near him when he gets hit. So it's okay for the top brass in the Ministry of Defence to do this well-meaning, woke policy. And that's what it is. It's just pandering to woke pressure groups without a single care, concern and safety of those already serving. And then, of course, the Ministry of Defence has to pay for the medication. And HIV medication is damned expensive. Now, this country is quite possibly on the cusp of going to war with Russia over Ukraine. After all, the Chief of General Staff has suggested that we should be training for it. So to me, that's an indication it's going to happen. And therefore, the last thing that the armed forces should be thinking about now is appeasing woke left-wing pressure groups and making sure everyone's got their pronouns correct. It is the last thing on the minds of the enemy, and it should be the last thing on the minds of our armed forces as well. That's my opinion. Now, I have given you my opinion on this because, as the title of my channel suggests, I am a former member of the armed forces. I did just 8 years, and having experienced a real battlefield situation, I think I know what I'm talking about. And I hope this video does in no way add to the stigmatization of people with HIV. I haven't presented any disinformation regarding HIV, nor do I incite nor provoke, nor do I approve of any hatred towards people with HIV. I just want that known. But I think in this instance, regarding that establishment, the woke politicians should be just allowing the Ministry of Defence and the armed forces to get on with the job of protecting our nation, our people, our culture, history, freedoms and democracy. That's what they're there for. And that's what I think. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Should people with HIV be allowed to serve in the British Armed Forces? Or like me, do you have valid concerns? Let me know in the comments. And to let you know, as ever, I do have channel memberships. It's just me taking advantage of a YouTube feature. While I am still monetized, it won't be long. And I can guarantee you these cancel culture left-wing extremists, they'll put an end to that soon, I promise you. And being a member of my channel makes you feel great and patriotic. Just ask these lovely people right here. And that's that. So until my next video, comment, share, subscribe, and Roger Daltrey.